The mansion on Pinecrest Hill woke slowly, like an old animal reluctant to rise. Salt mist rolled up from the Atlantic and webbed itself along the wrought iron gates. Gulls wheeled and complained over the tiled roof. Somewhere below, the lighthouse on Burkitt Point blinked its patient white eye. Neighbors in Seacliff Village called the place Hartman House, though no one had seen Amelia Hartman in town since the funeral 11 months ago. Groceries came by delivery. Landscapers arrived once a month. The mailbox held realtor flyers begging to list the property. No one was ever invited inside. At 6:12 a.m., Noah cried, a stuttering, hiccuping sound that always started soft and then gathered conviction. Amelia rolled from the cold side of the bed, tugged on her robe and crossed the hallway lined with photographs. In each picture, Charles Hartman's grin was a little different, boyish on the ski slopes in Vale, tender in the NICU with a palm cradling Noah's entire body, formal in the black tux the night he won Innovator of the Year. She found herself searching those photographs the way a sailor might scan the horizon, hoping for a shape that means rescue, fearing the shape that means storm. "Hey, little bear," she whispered, lifting Noah from his crib. He was warm and serious-faced, the way he often was first thing in the morning, studying her like a puzzle to be solved. In that moment, the world narrowed to milk, burp cloth, and the soft mechanical hush of the sound machine. It was almost enough. And then life kept going, as life cruelly does. At 9 a.m., the gate buzzer crackled. Amelia fumbled the intercom. "Yes?" "Placement from Harbour Home Care," a young woman's voice said. "For Mrs. Hartman?" A pause. Amelia had scheduled and then cancelled 3 placements over the past month. Her chest tightened. Noah had developed a cough last week. She'd slept upright on the rocker to keep his breathing easy. "Drive through," she said at last. "I'll meet you." The black sedan pulled to a careful stop on the circular drive. A young woman stepped out with a battered suitcase and a canvas baby bag. She was tall in that still-growing way, all elbows and poise, wearing a clean white blouse under a worn denim jacket. Her hair was pinned back. Her shoes were practical. Her eyes, Amelia felt it in her bones, were watchful and grey-green, the exact shade of the ocean when a storm holds its breath. "Good morning," the woman said. "I'm Lena. The agency sent me your profile last night. Infant care, light housekeeping, overnight availability." Amelia nodded, inventorying the girl the way grief had trained her to inventory everything. Age, 22. The file had said. Posture, straight but not rigid. Hands, neat nails, no rings. A faint lemon scent clung to her clothes. Laundry soap rather than perfume. Trust is a strange commodity. When you have very little left, every detail becomes currency. Inside, Lena followed Amelia through the foyer, where fresh lilies had already begun to brown at the edges. The housekeeper, Ruth, had left 2 days earlier after a knee replacement consult. Amelia told herself this arrangement was temporary. "Nursery is this way," she said. "He just ate. He'll sleep again in 30 minutes if the planet is merciful." Lena smiled with one corner of her mouth. "Planets can be negotiated with. May I wash my hands first?" In the powder room mirror, those grey-green eyes startled Amelia again. Something about the shape, the slight down tilt at the outer edges, the way light caught the ring around the iris. "Don't be ridiculous," she told herself. Grief wears familiar faces on strangers and calls it logic. Within an hour, the house's tempo shifted. Lena moved without noise but with intention, an economy that looked very nearly like grace. Burp cloths were folded into precise thirds, bottles sterilized while Noah napped. A sticky ring on the kitchen island, orange juice spilled during a midnight worry, vanished. When Noah burbled awake, Lena scooped him up with the assurance of someone who had done it 1,000 times. She held him level with her own eyes and made a soft ha sound that coaxed a gummy, sudden smile. "You're good with him," Amelia said, surprised at how hoarse her voice sounded. She used to be good with words. Deal memos, boardrooms, talking a reporter off a hostile angle. She could once move language like chess. Now most sentences came out like apologies. "Babies are honest," Lena said, pacing the nursery with an easy sway. "They don't pretend to like you. They just do or they don't." Noah yawned, the kind that takes the whole face captive and makes the ears go pink. He pressed his palm to Lena's cheek, testing texture. Lena laughed, a tiny bell strike of sound that startled Amelia with its warmth. By noon, sunlight found the courage to push through the fog. The dining room, long unused, through a bright rectangle across the floor. Ruth had left a casserole with instructions like scripture. Amelia and Lena ate at opposite ends of the table out of habit rather than design. "You can sit closer," Amelia said, suddenly embarrassed by the gulf. Lena slid 2 chairs nearer. "It's a beautiful home," she said, not with realtor flattery but with something like respect, as if the house had ears. "Must be strange, all this quiet." "It wasn't always," Amelia said. She let herself look toward the ocean. Charles filled it with sound he was always humming, off-key just a little, as if he was daring the tune to misbehave. The silence after his name was a creature of its own. Lena folded her napkin. "I'm sorry for your loss." The words landed without cliché. Maybe it was the way Lena didn't tilt her head in pity. Maybe it was how she watched Noah through the baby monitor on the table, as if grief and vigilance were part of the same duty. The afternoon passed in small salvations. Noah slept, twice longer than he had in a week. Amelia showered without the frantic beat of her heart counting seconds. Laundry hummed. A contractor stopped by to fix the temperamental pantry door and left a bill with too many zeros. Lena raised an eyebrow and said, "I can tighten that hinge." She did. The door sighed and behaved. Clouds rolled in toward evening, thick and bruised. The first knuckle of thunder sounded far out over the water. Amelia found herself on the landing as Lena passed below with Noah balanced against her shoulder. "Would you like me to handle bath time?" Lena asked. Yes, if you don't mind." "Not at all. He looks like a splasher." In the bathroom, the cheerful one with whales along the tile border, Lena knelt at the tub and narrated every step. "Right hand checks the water. Left hand holds the star," she said, showing the rubber starfish. Noah listened with his entire body. He did splash solemnly at first, and then with delighted outrage that water could be both contained and conquered. From the doorway, Amelia watched something inside her unclench. "You're very calm," she said. "Sometimes you have to be the weather you want the room to have," Lena answered, glancing up. Those eyes again, grey-green, storm-held. For a breath, Amelia felt like she was looking at a memory she didn't own. Night came with force. Wind harried the cypress trees and turned the gate into an instrument. After Noah slept, after the dishwasher sighed itself into a rhythm, after Amelia told herself she would go to bed early and didn't, she walked the corridor that led past the guest rooms. One door was open a hand's width. Light made a thin yellow blade across the hall runner. Inside, Lena sat on the edge of the bed with a small object cupped in her palm. The lamp caught it and a thin line of gold winked. "Is everything all right?" Amelia asked, stopping herself from knocking in time to realize that knocking didn't matter on an already open door. Lena startled, then closed her fingers gently around the object. "Oh yes, sorry, I was just..." She looked like someone deciding whether to tell the whole truth or the most reasonable portion of it. "Just saying goodnight to someone." To someone. Amelia took a half step in. The room smelled like clean cotton and a little like rain. "May I ask what that is?" Lena hesitated. When she opened her hand, the gold lay still and strange. A small oval locket on a fine chain, its face engraved with a pair of entwined initials, C and A, curled with a jeweler's sure hand. The same script Amelia had traced dozens of times with her thumb when the chain rested against Charles's throat. Cold moved through her, clean as seawater. "Where did you get that?" Lena's eyes flicked to Amelia's and held. "It was given to me," she said softly. "By whom?" Lena's answer came as the house shook with a close roll of thunder, turning her words into something that felt fated. "By the man who told me to come here." The storm gathered itself and broke. Rain hammered the windows. Somewhere Noah sighed in his sleep and resettled. In the doorway, Amelia's pulse tripped and then sprinted. Her brain reached for reasons. Copies, coincidences, engravers who reused flourishes, all the tidy explanations for the untidy thing happening in front of her. But the locket was not a copy. The tiny scuff at the lower edge where Charles had once dropped it against their stone patio, she could see it. The hinge that stuck for a year and then loosened after he took it to a jeweler in Providence. She could feel the resistance when Lena's thumb tested it open. Inside, the left oval held a grainy photo from their 5th anniversary. The two of them on the Vineyard Ferry, hair in their eyes, laughing at something that had already blown away. The right oval was empty. It had always been empty, Charles used to joke they were saving it for future proof. How, Amelia whispered, the words scraping. How could you possibly— He said you'd ask, Lena murmured. Her voice had changed. It was not deeper, but it had a steadiness that seemed borrowed from a person older than 22. He said you'd want the whole story, and that I should start with the tea in the morning room, because you hate coffee, and because you never trust anyone who drinks decaf. Amelia blinked. The morning room. Her irrational contempt for decaf. Little things you tell a person who knows you, or a person who wants to seem like they do. The panic in her chest sharpened into something almost useful. Who said that? Lena closed the locket and, for a fraction of a second, looked like a child stealing herself in a doctor's office. When she spoke, the careful neutrality was gone. Charles, she said. Charles told me. And he told me to tell you he's sorry for the night of the storm. The room tilted. Outside, lightning stitched the horizon. Amelia reached the door jamb with her hand like a swimmer finding the pool wall. Charles is dead, she said. She hadn't said the sentence out loud in months. Saying it felt like insulting physics. I know, Lena said. The sympathy in her voice was plain, but so was a strange, unbearable certainty. That's why I came. For a long moment, the only thing moving was the rain. Then Amelia's body decided breathing was a good idea again. Tomorrow, she said, and surprised herself with how calm she sounded. You will tell me everything tomorrow. In the light? Yes, Mrs. Hartman. Amelia nodded and stepped back into the hall. She meant to walk to her room, to put a wall, a door, and the geography of sleep between herself and any unanswerable thing. Instead, she found herself drifting to the nursery, the soft red glow of the monitor painting the edges of the room. Noah slept with one fist up near his ear, the way Charles used to sleep, as if ready to answer a phone that might ring in a dream. She sat in the rocker and listened to the storm argue with the house. When she finally lay down, she did not close her eyes immediately. In the darkness, memory and fear braided themselves into a strange rope, one strong enough to pull her back through what she had spent a year refusing to revisit. On the night of the accident, the forecast had promised only light rain. Charles had kissed the baby's forehead and told Amelia he'd be home before midnight. Somewhere around 11, the storm changed its mind. Somewhere between here and the turnpike, he called, and the call dropped, and the police later said the skid marks suggested a sudden swerve. In the guest room, a young woman slept with a locket that did not belong to her. In the nursery, a baby breathed in sweet, short puffs. In the master bedroom, a widow stared at the ceiling and rehearsed the sound of a dead man's name spoken by a stranger. Morning would come. Tea would be poured. Questions would line up like soldiers. But tonight, the house knew only one truth. The past had learned the route back, and it had found a pair of grey-green eyes to knock with. Dawn crept over Pinecrest Hill like a hesitant apology. After the storm, the air felt rinsed and metallic, heavy with the scent of wet soil and salt. Inside the mansion, silence stretched like a sheet between rooms, too clean, too complete. Amelia Hartman sat at the round table in the morning room, its glass surface reflecting pale sunlight through floor-to-ceiling windows. The kettle hissed softly on the side counter. She stirred her tea without tasting it, watching the faint rings spiral outward until they disappeared. Sleep had not visited her. The words he said you'd ask looped through her mind until they lost shape, became only rhythm. At precisely 8, she heard light footsteps in the hall. Lena entered, her hair loosely tied, sleeves rolled, wearing a plain grey sweater that made her seem even younger. She held Noah against her shoulder. The baby gurgled once, half asleep, as if the storm had left him exhausted too. Morning, Mrs. Hartman, Lena said softly. Sit, Amelia replied without looking up. There's tea. Lena obeyed, sliding into the chair opposite. She poured a small cup, added sugar, stirred once. Her movements were unhurried, as if she had done this exact thing 1,000 times before. The same rhythm Charles had once had on quiet mornings, the measured clink of spoon on porcelain, 3 clockwise turns, 1 counterclockwise, Amelia noticed. Every detail screamed at her. You said last night, Amelia began, her voice tight, that my husband told you to come here. Lena nodded. Yes, ma'am. How? Amelia's hands gripped the edge of the table. He's been dead almost a year. So explain to me slowly how that could possibly be true. Lena looked down at the steam rising between them. "It's not an easy thing to explain," she said after a moment. "And I don't expect you to believe me. But I promised him I'd tell you everything." "Start with how you knew him." Lena hesitated. And then, like a gate unlatched, words began to spill. "I met him 3 years ago," she said, "at a community center in Providence. I worked part-time as an assistant in an outreach program for single mothers. He was sponsoring a grant, one of those quiet donations no one talks about. I didn't even know who he was at first. He used a different last name, Mr. Crane, said he liked to keep business separate from charity." Amelia's heart clenched. Charles had used that alias before. Crane was his mother's maiden name, something he used when he wanted to move unseen. "I was just 19, Lena continued, tracing her finger along the edge of the teacup. "My mother had died that spring. I didn't have much left." He was kind. Too kind, maybe. He said I reminded him of someone he'd lost. The words hung between them like a fragile bridge. Amelia felt a chill crawl up her arms. "Someone he'd lost," she repeated almost to herself. Lena nodded. "He helped me, paid for my nursing classes, found me a safe apartment. I didn't ask questions because I didn't want to lose the help. Then last year, after the accident, I thought it was over. But 2 weeks ago I got a letter. No return address, just my name in his handwriting." Amelia froze. "That's impossible." "I know," Lena whispered. "But the letter was real. It said, 'If you ever loved me like the father I tried to be, go to her. She'll need you when the sea turns grey again.'" There was a key inside Huddy to this house. Amelia felt the floor tilt. Her throat tightened around a single impossible question. "Father?" Before she could speak, Noah stirred, and Lena rocked him instinctively, murmuring nonsense lullabies under her breath. The scene, the young woman holding the baby in Charles's house, speaking of letters from the dead, felt like a fever dream. Amelia rose abruptly. "Show me the letter." Lena blinked, then nodded. "It's in my room. I didn't want to bring it out without your permission." They walked together through the echoing corridor. The mansion, once familiar, now felt like a museum of ghosts. Every step sounded too loud. Every photograph seemed to watch. Inside the guest room, Lena opened her suitcase, neatly packed, a few folded clothes, a worn paperback, a photograph of her and an older woman who must have been her mother. From beneath the lining, she drew out an envelope. Cream paper, edges water-stained. The handwriting, unmistakable. Bold, slanted, elegant. Charles Hartman's hand. Amelia reached for it, fingers trembling. The scent of cedar and ink hit her immediately. The same paper he used for personal notes. She broke the seal with shaking hands. "My dearest Lena," the letter began. "If this reaches you, it means my time has ended sooner than I planned. There are things I could not set right while alive. One of them is Amelia. She will need you more than she'll admit. Go to her. Care for her child as if he were your own blood, because in a way he is." Amelia's breath caught. Her eyes darted over the next lines, each one sinking like a stone. "You were born from a mistake I made long ago, one I never stopped regretting. I never told Amelia, because I thought I could protect everyone by keeping the truth buried. But secrets rot when left too long in the dark. If she ever finds out, tell her I'm sorry. Tell her I loved her, and that I never meant for love to turn into lies." The paper slipped from her hands. The room seemed to shrink, the air thick. "No," she whispered. "No, that's not possible." Lena stood frozen, tears shining in her eyes. "I didn't want to come, Mrs. Hartman. I didn't even believe it at first. But when I saw Noah, I knew he was telling the truth." Amelia stumbled back against the dresser. Her reflection in the mirror looked alien. Pale, hollow, unrecognizable. "You're saying you're his daughter?" Lena nodded slowly. "Yes, ma'am. I'm his daughter. And that makes Noah my little brother." Silence. Heavy, shattering. The rain outside began again, soft and relentless, like the world itself had decided to cry for them. Amelia sank into the armchair. For a long time she said nothing. Her thoughts spiraled through disbelief, rage, betrayal, and a strange, nauseating relief. The pieces of Charles's mysterious trips, the unexplained donations, the hushed phone calls, all rearranging themselves into a truth she'd never wanted to see. Lena knelt beside her, her voice trembling. "He told me to protect you both. He said someone might come, Someone who knows about what happened before the crash. Amelia looked up sharply. What do you mean someone might come? Lena hesitated. The night before the accident, he called me. He sounded afraid. He said if anything happens to me, it won't be an accident. The words hit like thunder all over again. Outside, a car engine started somewhere down the road, faint, distant. But enough to make both women turn toward the window. Amelia whispered, "Are you saying my husband was murdered?" Lena didn't answer. Her eyes, the same grey-green that haunted Amelia all night, met hers steadily. He didn't tell me who to trust, only that the truth would come back with the tide. And as another roll of thunder drifted in from the sea, Amelia realized something chilling. The tide was already turning. The sky over Pinecrest Hill was the color of pewter when Amelia finally pulled herself together. The letter lay open on the bed where she'd dropped it hours earlier, the paper wrinkled with tears she hadn't meant to shed. The ink had bled slightly along the edges of Charles's handwriting, and each word now looked like it was weeping on its own. She moved mechanically through the morning, bathing Noah, dressing him, avoiding mirrors. Her body went through the motions, but her mind refused to stay in the present. It kept circling the same impossible truth. Lena was Charles's daughter. Her husband, the man she had trusted, defended, worshipped, had carried a secret life alongside hers, and now that secret was standing in her kitchen, humming softly to the baby. From the doorway, Amelia watched. Lena's sleeves were rolled to the elbows, and her hair fell loose over her shoulders as she mashed a banana for Noah. The domesticity of it made Amelia's stomach twist. It looked too natural. The girl moved around the space like she had always belonged there. For a moment, Amelia felt an irrational flash of anger. It wasn't Lena's fault, she knew that, but grief doesn't care about reason. "You're up early," Amelia said. Her voice came out sharper than intended. Lena turned, startled, but smiled. Noah was hungry. "I thought I'd let you rest. I wasn't sleeping." Amelia crossed her arms. "You said last night that someone might come. Someone who knows about what happened. What did you mean by that?" Lena's expression shifted, guarded, wary. "I don't know exactly. He didn't say who, just that there were people he owed. He called them the ones who owned the truth." Amelia frowned. "That sounds like paranoia. Maybe, but he was scared." "Mrs. Hartman, I've never heard fear in a man's voice like that before." Before Amelia could respond, there was a knock on the front door. 3 slow, deliberate raps, her breath caught. Nobody ever came to the house uninvited. The security gate had been locked since the night before. She glanced at the camera monitor beside the door. A man stood outside in a long black coat, his hair slicked back from the rain. He was tall, perhaps in his 40s, carrying a leather portfolio. His expression was calm but unreadable. "Do you know him?" Amelia whispered. Lena shook her head, but her posture stiffened. Amelia pressed the intercom. "Who is it?" "Mrs. Hartman?" The voice was deep, professional. "Detective Raymond Cole, Providence PD. I'm following up on your husband's case." Amelia froze. "His case? See, I thought it was closed." The man smiled faintly at the camera. "That's what I thought too. May I come in?" Against every instinct, Amelia opened the door. The detective stepped inside, wiping his shoes politely. He glanced around the foyer, the marble floor, the ocean painting above the staircase, as if cataloguing details for a report. "Sorry for dropping by unannounced," he said, flipping open a small badge wallet. "We've reopened Mr. Hartman's file. There are inconsistencies." "What kind of inconsistencies?" Amelia asked. "Financial, mostly." He opened his portfolio and produced a thin folder. "Your husband's company had a series of anonymous wire transfers in the months before his death. Large sums. Millions, actually. Some of those payments went to individuals who don't seem to exist. At least not legally." Amelia's hands tightened around the back of a chair. "You're saying Charles was involved in something illegal?" "We're not sure yet, but someone out there was cleaning those accounts very carefully." Lena stood motionless behind her, eyes fixed on the folder. Detective Cole looked up. "There's one more thing. We found a name on the ledger, L. Crane. Do you know anyone by that name?" The room went still. Amelia's mind went blank, and she could feel Lena's fear like a pulse in the air. "I don't think so," Amelia managed. Cole studied her for a long moment, his gaze sliding briefly toward Lena. "If you remember anything, please call me." This isn't just about money anymore. Someone out there doesn't want this case reopened. He handed her a card, nodded politely and left. As the sound of his car faded down the hill, Amelia turned to Lena. You need to tell me everything. Right now, Lena's hands trembled. I swear I don't know about the money. I didn't take anything. I only knew about the letter. Then why did he write your name on an account ledger? Amelia's voice cracked. Why would Charles send money under your name unless he was hiding something? Lena's eyes filled. He said it was for protection, for me, for you, for Noah. He said someone was watching him. That there were people he couldn't trust, even in his own company. Amelia began pacing the room. His company, she muttered. Hartman Biotech. The name felt heavy in her mouth. Charles's empire, the biomedical research firm that had made him a millionaire before 40. Do you know what they were working on before he died? She asked suddenly. Lena hesitated. He mentioned a project, something called Project Helix. He said it would change medicine forever. But then he told me to forget the name. He said too many lives depended on it staying buried. Helix, Amelia repeated. She had heard that word once, in an argument Charles had with his partner, Dr. Neil Grant, the night before the accident. She remembered the sound of it, the anger, the fear. You don't know what you're doing, Charles, Neil had said. If this comes out, we're all finished. The memory sliced through her like glass. Suddenly a sound echoed from the hallway, the faint click of a door closing. Both women turned toward the sound. Amelia whispered, Did you lock the back door? Lena shook her head. I thought you did. They exchanged a glance, half fear, half disbelief, and crept toward the corridor. The floorboards creaked softly underfoot. At the end of the hall near Charles's old study, a faint light glowed under the door. No one's been in there since... Amelia stopped herself. Since he died. She reached for the handle. It turned easily. The study looked untouched. Mahogany desk, leather chair, bookshelves heavy with medical journals and old maritime novels. The smell of cedar oil lingered in the air. But on the desk something was new. A single envelope, placed neatly in the center as if waiting. Her name was written across it in the same bold handwriting. Amelia's pulse hammered. She looked at Lena, who shook her head. She hadn't placed it there. With trembling fingers, Amelia opened the envelope. Inside was a small flash drive and a single note. For the truth. When you're ready to see it. No signature. Only a faint fingerprint smeared in ink across the corner, one Amelia knew too well. Charles's. The storm outside began again. Sweeping against the glass with a low, angry hiss, the house seemed to exhale around them, walls settling, air tightening, as though the ghosts of the past had finally woken up. Amelia clutched the flash drive to her chest. Whatever this is, she said, voice shaking, we're going to find out. Lena swallowed hard. And what if the truth destroys everything? Amelia looked toward the rain-beaten windows. Then maybe it's time it did. Outside, the waves crashed harder against the cliffs below Pinecrest Hill, as if the ocean itself was warning them. Once you open the door to the truth, it never closes again. Rain swept through the morning like an uninvited guest. It lashed against the mansion's windows, hissed through the gutters, and turned the world beyond the glass into a shifting grey ocean. Inside, the rooms of Pinecrest Hill were heavy with electricity, not from the storm, but from the silence that followed Amelia's words. The small flash drive sat on the table between Amelia and Lena, like an artifact dug out of the earth. Something ancient, dangerous, sacred. Neither of them touched it for a long time. Finally, Amelia broke the silence. He left this for me, she murmured, as if saying it might make it less impossible. Charles must have recorded something before... Her voice caught. Before the crash. Lena stared at the device, her face pale. Maybe we should take it to the police. Amelia shook her head. No, not yet. If what you said is true, that someone might be watching us, then I'm not trusting anyone until I know what's on this drive. She crossed the study to Charles's old laptop. The one still resting on the shelf under a layer of dust. Her hands trembled as she plugged in the flash drive. The computer hummed to life, screen flickering with the familiar background. An image of Noah's ultrasound, still set as the wallpaper from a year ago. The drive opened automatically. Only one folder appeared. Private, do not share inside it. There were 4 video files, each labeled only by date. Lena stepped closer. "They're from the month before the accident." Amelia clicked the first one. The screen showed Charles in his study, this very study, sitting at the same desk, a faint exhaustion in his eyes. He looked older than Amelia remembered, his face drawn, his hair streaked with the beginnings of grey. He began to speak. "If you're watching this, Amelia, then something has gone wrong. I don't have time to explain everything, but you need to know the truth about Project Helix. It's not what we said it was. It's not about curing genetic disease. It's about controlling it." Amelia froze. Her heart thudded in her ears. Charles continued, his voice lower now, almost trembling. "They used me, Amelia. The board, Neil, everyone. They told me Helix was about gene therapy for newborns, but they started running trials without consent on infants born in Providence General. They wanted to see if genetic suppression could make children more manageable." He rubbed his face, voice cracking. "I found out last year. They paid the hospital to alter birth records, bury results, hide deaths. The money transfers you'll find in my accounts. I used them to buy the evidence and hide it offshore. But now they know I know. Neil threatened to leak my private life, to ruin us. I thought I could make it right before it was too late." Then he leaned forward, closer to the camera. "If anything happens to me, find Lena Crane. She's not what they think she is. She's proof that Helix worked once, but in a way they never expected. She's immune to the very sequence they were trying to suppress." Lena gasped audibly beside Amelia. "I couldn't protect her then," Charles whispered, "but I can now. I left her funds under her mother's name to keep her hidden. If Helix continues, they'll come for her again. Don't let that happen." The video ended with static. Amelia sat frozen, her whole body trembling. "He knew," she whispered. "He knew what they were doing." Lena stepped back, her face pale as the lightning flashing through the windows. "I was part of it," she said weakly. "That's why he said I was immune. My mother, she was in a medical trial before I was born. She always told me she got paid for some study. I never knew what it was." The revelation struck like thunder. Amelia pressed her palms to her temples. "Oh God!" The second video began playing automatically. This one was darker, the lighting uneven. Charles looked shaken, almost paranoid. Papers covered his desk. Behind him, the study door rattled faintly, as though someone had tried to open it moments before. "It's getting worse," he whispered. Neil called again. "He knows about the transfer to the account in Lena's name. He said if I don't deliver the drives, he'll make sure no one in this house wakes up again." "He wasn't bluffing, Amelia. He knows where you and Noah are." Charles swallowed hard, then turned to look directly into the lens. "If I don't make it back from Providence tomorrow, do not believe the police report. It won't be an accident." The screen went black. A low rumble shook the house as thunder rolled in again. Amelia pressed a hand to her mouth. She could feel every beat of her heart like a blow. When she finally spoke, her voice was almost gone. "He was trying to protect us." "And they killed him for it," Lena whispered. "And now they'll come for us." They sat in silence for a long time, the only sound the rain hitting the glass. Then Noah's cry broke through the monitor, sharp, desperate. Amelia jumped up. "He never cries like that." She ran down the hall to the nursery, Lena close behind. When they entered, the window was open and the curtain fluttering wildly. The crib was empty. Amelia screamed, "Noah!" A shadow moved outside the window, fast, vanishing toward the garden. Without thinking, Amelia tore through the hallway, barefoot, heart in her throat. She reached the back door just as it slammed shut from the wind, or from something else. She stumbled into the yard, rain soaking her hair, lightning tearing across the sky. "Noah!" She screamed again, her voice breaking in the storm. Then she saw him, standing in the arms of a man near the gate. The figure turned under a flash of lightning. It was Detective Cole. "Mrs. Hartman," he shouted. "It's okay." I heard crying from outside. The gate was open. He stepped forward, cradling Noah carefully, the baby's face pressed against his shoulder. "I think someone tried to open the back door. I saw movement near the tree line." Amelia collapsed in relief, tears mixing with the rain. She took Noah from his arms, clutching him to her chest. Cole looked at her with concern. "You should call security, Mrs. Hartman. Whoever it was, and they're gone now, but they knew what they were doing." Lena appeared behind her, soaked, trembling. Cole glanced at her, his expression unreadable. "You're the new maid?" "Yes," Lena said quietly. Cole's eyes lingered a second too long. "Be careful up here on the hill," he said. "Storms like this make people do strange things." He gave a polite nod and walked toward his car. But as his headlights swept across the gate, Amelia noticed something that froze her blood. The back of his car, the license plate, bore the same initials as the secret files Charles had marked in his videos, HLX, Helix. Her breath caught. She turned toward Lena, whispering, "He's not police." Lena's face went pale. "Then who is he?" Amelia looked back, but the car was already gone, swallowed by the storm. Inside the house, Noah whimpered softly, clutching his mother's shirt. Amelia held him close, staring at the flash drive still lying open on the desk inside. Whatever truth it held wasn't finished, and the people who had buried it once weren't done digging. As thunder roared again above Pinecrest Hill, one thing became terrifyingly clear. The ghosts in the mansion were not the dead. They were the living ones who refused to let the past stay buried. The storm passed by dawn, leaving Pinecrest Hill washed in a strange silver light. The sea below the cliffs had turned from black to a muted grey, its surface trembling with the memory of what had happened overnight. The mansion, too, seemed to breathe differently, its air thick with questions that refused to sleep. Amelia hadn't closed her eyes once. She sat in the study with the flash drive plugged into the laptop, the cursor blinking like a heartbeat against the dark screen. On the table beside her, Noah's baby monitor hissed softly, and in the next room Lena slept on the couch, exhausted. The third video file waited, the one labeled 2 days before. Amelia hesitated. Every instinct screamed for her to stop, to take Noah and run far from whatever nightmare Charles had uncovered. But she knew there was no outrunning the truth. It was already here, breathing through the walls. She double-clicked the file. The screen flickered to life. Charles appeared again, but this time he wasn't alone. Standing behind him, half in shadow, was a man Amelia recognized instantly. Dr. Neil Grant, his business partner and lifelong friend. Charles's voice was tight, almost pleading. "Neil, this isn't right. You're crossing a line." Grant leaned forward, eyes cold. "You think you can walk away from this? After what we built? You think you can just take the files and run?" "It was supposed to save lives," Charles shouted. "Not create perfect soldiers." Amelia froze. "Soldiers?" Grant slammed his hands on the desk. "You naive fool. Do you think the investors poured billions into Helix for charity? They wanted control, genetic obedience, immunity to pain, to fear, and we gave it to them. You gave them monsters." Charles yelled. There was a pause, the kind that feels like the earth holding its breath before an earthquake. Then Grant's tone changed. "Low and dangerous. If you expose this, Charles, they'll kill you. They'll erase your family. You think that little boy will grow up knowing who you are? You'll be a ghost before the week ends." Charles's face hardened. "Then I'll be a ghost who tells the truth." The video ended abruptly. Amelia sat motionless, her hands covering her mouth. The room felt smaller, as though the air itself had begun to tighten around her. A sound behind her made her flinch. Lena had woken, her face pale and drawn. "What did he say?" she whispered. Amelia turned the screen toward her. Lena watched, eyes wide, her breathing shallow. When the clip ended, she sank to the floor, clutching her head. "They used me," Lena said hoarsely. He was right. "My mother told me she was paid to be part of a fertility trial. She said it was a blessing, that she couldn't have children before that. I was that trial, Mrs. Hartman. I was Helix." Amelia knelt beside her. "That's why he protected you. That's why they're after us. You're living proof of their crime." Lena looked up, tears streaking her face. "If that detective wasn't real police, he's probably one of them. He knows you have the drive now." Amelia's chest constricted. "Then we have to move. Right now." Within minutes, the two women packed a bag for Noah, diapers, milk, a blanket, and hurried down to the garage. Amelia's old black SUV still smelled faintly of Charles's cologne. She buckled Noah into his car seat with shaking hands, whispering prayers she hadn't spoken since the funeral. They drove down the winding coastal road, fog curling across the cliffs like smoke. Lena kept watch through the rear window, eyes darting to every passing vehicle. For a while neither spoke. The rhythmic wipers and the hum of the engine filled the silence. Then Lena broke it. "Where are we going?" "Somewhere safe," Amelia said. Charles had a storage unit near Providence. He kept backups of everything. If the flash drive isn't enough, the rest might still be there. They drove for hours, passing through the outskirts of small towns, gas stations, diners, lonely motels, each one blurring together like scenes from someone else's life. By noon, the rain had stopped, leaving the sky washed and cold. They reached an industrial district by the harbour, where warehouses stood shoulder to shoulder, their windows blank with dust. The storage facility was old, but familiar. Amelia found the key exactly where Charles used to hide it, under the third brick beside the doorframe. She unlocked Unit 17, and the metal door screeched open like an animal waking from hibernation. Inside was darkness, and dust thick enough to make them cough. Rows of boxes lined the walls. Amelia flipped on a light. The bulb flickered, casting an eerie yellow glow across stacks of documents, hard drives, and sealed folders marked HLX Property. Lena stared. Sarah kept everything. Amelia picked up a binder and opened it. Inside were photos of children, infants in hospital cribs, each one labeled with a code. H214, H219, H220. Some were marked deceased. Others had a red stamp unaccounted. Oh my God, Amelia whispered. She turned another page and froze. There, among the photos, was one of Lena as a baby. Same grey-green eyes, same birthmark near her chin. Underneath the photo, a line of type read, Subject H219, female, mutation stable. DNA alteration, suppressed fear response. Lena's voice broke. That's me. Amelia looked up sharply. And they said you were immune. Lena nodded slowly, trembling. That's why I never get sick. Why I don't panic easily. I thought it was just luck. Before Amelia could answer, the sound of tires crunching gravel outside made both of them freeze. Someone's here, Lena whispered. Amelia snapped off the light. Through the small ventilation slit above the door, they saw two black SUVs parked in front of the building. Men stepped out, 4 of them dressed in dark tactical gear, guns drawn. Lena's whisper trembled. They found us. Amelia's heart pounded. She grabbed the flash drive from her pocket and looked around desperately. There, at the far end of the unit, a small ventilation tunnel barely wide enough for a person to crawl through. Go, Amelia hissed. Take Noah. I'm not leaving you, Lena said fiercely. You have to, Amelia said, pressing the flash drive into her palm. You're the only one who can prove what they did. If they get me, fine. But they can't get you. Lena shook her head, tears streaming down her face. Mrs. Hartman, Amelia grabbed her by the shoulders. Please do this for Charles. Outside, boots hit the ground. The clang of metal echoed as someone began cutting through the lock. Lena hesitated only a second longer, then took Noah into her arms and crawled into the tunnel. The faint glow of light at the other end flickered against her face as she disappeared into the shadows. Amelia turned back toward the door. She picked up one of Charles's binders, heavy, full of documents, and clutched it to her chest. The door burst open. The men flooded in, shouting orders, lights slicing through the dark. Amelia threw the binder at the nearest one and darted toward the back, her heart hammering. A gunshot split the air, sharp, deafening. The bullet tore through the shelf beside her, showering papers like feathers. She stumbled, fell, her hands landing on cold metal. A small crate had split open. Inside, sealed glass tubes filled with liquid, each labeled Helix Serum Prototype. The men advanced. Drop it! One barked. Amelia raised her head slowly. Her face was streaked with dust and tears, but her eyes burned with something fierce. You killed my husband, she said. You think I'll let you take my son too? One of the men stepped forward. You have no idea what you're involved in. Amelia smiled faintly, the kind of smile that belongs to someone who has already lost everything. Maybe not, but I know how to end it. Before he could react, she grabbed one of the tubes and smashed it against the floor. A hiss of white vapor exploded, filling the air. The men shouted, coughing, blinded. Amelia ran. She slipped through the smoke, ducking behind the shelves, and reached the side exit just as another bullet grazed the wall beside her. Outside, she stumbled into the rain again, the same relentless ocean wind that had always haunted this coast. Far ahead, across the field, she saw Lena, running barefoot, Noah pressed against her chest, disappearing into the fog. Amelia smiled through her tears. Go, she whispered. Run. Behind her, the warehouse erupted in flames. The smoke rose black against the pale morning sky, a column of burning secrets. And in that smoke, Amelia swore she saw Charles's face for an instant. The same soft smile he used to wear when he whispered, "Trust the tide, it always brings things back." The tide, she thought, staring toward the distant sea, wasn't finished yet. Somewhere beyond the cliffs, the waves were already carrying the truth toward shore. Morning sunlight broke over the Atlantic in long, trembling lines of gold, spilling across the coastline, like something reborn. The smoke from the burned warehouse still rose in the distance, thin grey fingers curling into the sky. The air smelled of salt, ash and endings. Down on the narrow service road leading away from the industrial docks, Lena staggered forward barefoot, Noah wrapped tightly in her arms. Her lungs burned, her hands shook, but she didn't stop. Behind her, sirens wailed faintly, swallowed by the wind. She found shelter beneath a rusted bridge. The concrete was damp, the shadows cold, but for the first time in hours she could breathe. Noah whimpered softly against her chest, and she rocked him instinctively, whispering, "It's okay, little brother. I've got you now." She reached into her jacket pocket. The flash drive was still there, warm from her body heat. Inside that tiny shell of metal and circuits lived everything Charles had died to protect. Evidence of Helix, of Neil Grant's betrayal, of lives destroyed in the name of science. She pressed it against her lips. "You didn't die for nothing." A soft sound drew her attention, a car engine idling nearby. Her heart lurched. Slowly she peered out from under the bridge. A silver sedan had pulled onto the service road. For one terrifying moment, she thought it was one of the black SUVs. But then the driver's door opened, and a woman stepped out, Amelia. Her hair was wet with rain, streaked with soot, her clothes torn. But she was alive. Lena ran toward her, tears spilling freely. "You made it!" I thought. Amelia wrapped her in a fierce embrace, Noah between them. So did I. For a moment there were no words, only the shared pulse of survival, the ache of everything they'd lost. Then Amelia pulled back, eyes red but determined. "We can't go home. They'll be watching every road to Pinecrest Hill." Lena nodded. "What do we do now?" Amelia looked toward the horizon, where the ocean glittered under the sun. "We finish what Charles started." They drove north along the coast in silence, passing fishing towns and weathered gas stations where no one asked questions. Lena sat in the back seat with Noah, humming softly to keep him calm. Amelia gripped the steering wheel like it was the only thing tethering her to the world. Every few miles she glanced in the rearview mirror, half expecting headlights to appear behind them. But the road stayed empty. By late afternoon they reached Providence. The city shimmered under the sunlight, unaware of the war of secrets happening beneath its calm surface. Amelia parked near the old courthouse and turned to Lena. "You said the police might be compromised," Lena reminded her. "Maybe," Amelia said, "but not everyone. There's one person I trust." She reached for her phone and dialed a number she hadn't called in months. "Detective Susan Vega," a woman's voice answered on the other end. "Tired?" Sharp and familiar. "Susan, it's Amelia Hartman," a pause. Then, "Amelia? Jesus, I thought you left the state. What's going on?" "I have something you need to see," Amelia said. "Evidence about Helix, about my husband's death." There was another pause, longer this time. When Susan spoke again, her voice had dropped to a whisper. "Meet me at the old marina." "Half an hour." "And Amelia, don't tell anyone you called me." The marina was nearly deserted. Boats bobbed gently in their slips, ropes creaking against wooden posts. The smell of diesel and salt filled the air. Detective Vega arrived right on time, wearing a leather jacket over her plainclothes holster. Her dark hair was tied back, her expression wary. Amelia handed her the flash drive. "Everything's in here. 4 videos, financial ledgers, trial data. It proves Helix wasn't just illegal, it was murder." Susan inserted the drive into her tablet, eyes scanning the files. The glow of the screen flickered against her face as she read. "Oh my God," she murmured. This is enough to bring down half the board of Hartman Biotech." "And Neil Grant?" Lena stepped forward, voice trembling. "He's not just a scientist. He's dangerous. He sent people after us." Susan looked up sharply. "Where's your husband now, Amelia?" Amelia's face went still. "He's gone. They killed him." For a long time, Susan said nothing. Then she drew a slow breath. Okay, then we finish this. I'll take the drive straight to the U.S. Attorney's office. But once I do, you'll both need protection. Witness custody, maybe even relocation. Lena nodded. Whatever it takes. Susan pocketed the drive. Go to the Lighthouse Inn on the North Shore. Room 12. Tell them Vega sent you. Stay there until I call. She looked at Noah and smiled softly. He's beautiful, Amelia. He looks just like... Her words cut off as a shot rang out. The bullet hit the wooden post inches from her head. Another followed, splintering the dock. Down! She shouted, pulling her gun. Chaos erupted. Amelia dove behind a fishing crate, clutching Noah. Lena dragged her toward a row of barrels as a black SUV screeched into view at the top of the dock. Two men jumped out, rifles raised. Susan fired back, her bullet sparking against the SUV's door. "Run!" she yelled. "Get to the boat!" Amelia and Lena sprinted down the dock, their feet pounding against the wet planks. Noah cried in terror. A bullet whined past Amelia's shoulder. They reached a small motorboat tied to the last post. Without thinking, Amelia untied the rope and shoved it off. Lena jumped in after her, pulling Noah into her arms. "Go!" Susan shouted, firing again. One of the gunmen fell. The other turned, aiming straight at her. The shot echoed. Susan stumbled, clutching her side, but fired one last time before collapsing behind the crates. Amelia's scream was lost to the roar of the motor as the boat lurched away from the dock. The ocean was wild again, waves slamming against the hull. Lena gripped the edge tightly, her knuckles white. Amelia steered blindly into the fog, every muscle aching, every heartbeat a drum. They didn't stop until the city was a ghost behind them. For a long time, there was nothing but the rhythm of the waves, the cry of distant gulls, and the baby's soft whimpers. Then, as the fog began to thin, a shadow appeared ahead, an island small and rocky. Crowned with an old lighthouse, Amelia guided the boat toward it. The beacon was still faintly lit, its glass lens turning slowly, catching the sun. "This must be it," she whispered. The lighthouse Vega meant. They climbed the narrow path up to the structure. The door was unlocked, the interior dusty but dry. Inside, old furniture lay draped in sheets. The silence was almost holy. Lena laid Noah on a makeshift bed and turned to Amelia. "What happens now?" Amelia looked out at the ocean. "We wait." 3 days passed. The news broke like a storm across the country. Whistleblower evidence links. Hartman Biotech to illegal genetic experimentation. Neil Grant was arrested on federal charges. The company's assets were frozen. Photos of Amelia flashed across the screens. Her face blurred, labeled only as an unnamed source. Detective Vega survived her wound. From the hospital, she sent one final message. "It's done. You're safe." The tide turned. Amelia read it in silence, then looked out at the water. Lena stood beside her, Noah asleep in her arms. "Do you think it's really over?" Amelia smiled faintly. "No, the truth never ends. It just changes shape." She turned to Lena, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "He'd be proud of you, you know." "Of both of us," Lena's eyes filled with tears. "He was my father, but you're my family." They stood together at the railing as the lighthouse beam swept over the sea, a slow, steady circle of light cutting through the mist. Far below, the tide was rising again, waves curling up the rocks, washing over the footprints they'd left when they first arrived. It was as if the ocean itself was erasing the past, carrying away everything that had been broken, everything that had been hidden. And yet, somewhere deep beneath those waves, the truth that Charles Hartman had died to reveal still shimmered, not gone. Not buried but alive, because some secrets, like the tide, always find their way back to shore. End of the Millionaire's Maid series.